Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning, and or good afternoon, or good noon time for those of you in the Midwest and Central area. Want to welcome everybody to this webinar. We're really excited about this opportunity today to share with you some exciting things that are, exciting technologies that are transforming workforce development. I'm also excited to have a good friend and colleague and client of ours on here as well, Randy McCauley from LA County Office of Education in their Gain and Grow division. So he's going to share with you a little bit today about how they are utilizing these new technologies to really drive outcomes and really innovate their programs and departments. Before we get started, I just want to do a quick little bit of housekeeping. One, this has been one of the most exciting webinars we've done. We had over 100 people sign up for this, and so far we've already got a number of folks that have already jumped online. So we're really excited. We've got the folks from California all the way to the Midwest and East Coast and possibly internationally. So this is very exciting. A little bit of housekeeping. For those of you who want to get on to hear the audio, you can hear the audio through the conference line. The number is down below if you see that. I'm going to circle it with my mouse so you can see that. It's 916-209-4534, and the code is 202752. So quick introductions before we get started. My name is Abraham Jankans. I am the CEO of Launchpad, and you can connect with me in a variety of different ways. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Google+. So you can connect with me in a variety of different social networks. Also, as we mentioned, we've got our guest today, Randy McCauley, who is the program manager for LACO and Gain Division. Randy, are you there with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Randy, how are you doing today?
Just fine, thanks. Good morning, everybody.
Great, great. So our agenda today, we're going to run through a lot of this stuff. We've got a lot of content to share with you, so we're going to run through it relatively quickly. But if you have questions, there'll be an opportunity to ask those as well. But our agenda, I'm going to share with you a little bit about Launchpad for those of you who do not know us. Also, we're going to talk about the technology trends within business and government. I think it would be good for us to do a compare and contrast on how private sector is utilizing technology and how government sector is beginning to utilize some of these technologies. We're also going to talk about some of the challenges that are facing workforce development and then possible solutions and how do we get there? How do we address these challenges utilizing these new technology platforms? And then I'm going to pass it over to Randy, who's going to talk about LACO and some of the things that they are doing at LA County Office of Education. And then we'll open up for question and answers and try to be done here at 11 o'clock Pacific time. So questions, how can you ask questions? First of all, we encourage everybody, this is an open dialogue, so we encourage everybody to ask questions if they can. There's a couple of ways. You can submit them via email. So my email address is ajankans@launchpadco.com. So AJANKANS at launchpadco.com. But also on Join Me, there's a great little chat widget on there. So if you're on your Join Me app, you'll see this little kind of floating widget. And on that widget, if you hit the little bubble there, it's kind of like a chat bubble, you can communicate. So you're definitely able to ask questions there. We already see folks in the chat room. So we'll be monitoring the chat room throughout this webinar if you have any questions as well. And please keep it PC in the chat room if you could, please. So we'll continue on, but that's how you can ask questions. Okay, tell you a little bit about Launchpad. I'll keep it brief. We are a cloud technology and consulting company. We specialize in the areas of workforce and economic development. Our background comes from staffing and workforce development as well as technology. So we bring a unique private sector approach as well as knowledge of the public sector, really try to bring those two things together to help workforce development agencies drive outcomes. We've worked with over 40 different workforce development and economic development organizations ranging from the city and county of Los Angeles all the way to the state of Wisconsin and their 10 workforce development boards. So we've worked with a number of different agencies in a variety of different areas and are really excited about this. I think what we try to do is really help amplify the abilities of workforce and economic development through technology. So, whether it's cloud technology, CRM, social, mobile, business process, we really try to help our clients increase and amplify their ability to drive outcomes so that they can have, or you can have, impact in the community. So let's jump right into the heart of the discussion here. Um, in preparing this webinar, I thought one of the things that I thought would be good for us to do is to talk a little bit about some of the technology trends within the private sector. And I'm going to refer to this as the business cloud. But, the private sector has really adopted CRM technology, cloud CRM technology, social technology. And the main reason that they've done this, really started out with large organizations, large enterprise organizations adopting enterprise technology to manage large spread out operations such as large sales teams, national sales teams or global sales teams. But one of the things that we've seen over the past few years is that the emergence of cloud technology, the emergence of social has really enabled small to medium-sized businesses to really what should I say, really to adopt these CRM technologies. So the private sector has really embraced these fully. I think a good example of this is, for instance, with Salesforce.com. I know that many companies were utilizing this technology to drive their sales organizations back in the 90s. When I was running a staffing organization, we would use ACT. Many of you are familiar with ACT CRM. And then Salesforce came along in 98 and 99, and that really became the leader in CRM technology. So the private sector has really kind of been an early adopter, and now you're seeing really small, medium-sized businesses have really embraced the cloud technology. And many organizations are really cloud only, meaning all of their applications are driven through the cloud, which for those of you who aren't familiar with the terminology cloud, it really is accessing your data from the internet, utilizing a browser or an internet or web-enabled device to access this information. So, private sector has really adopted this technology, but what you're seeing within the private sector, if you slice it even further, is that they're utilizing these platforms for a variety of different operations. So they're utilizing them to drive sales, very similar to business services. So if you have consultants that are going out and engaging with businesses, they've been using it to in that capacity to drive sales, to look at a pipeline and to forecast prospective deals that could be coming through. Secondly, a huge area where we have a lot of experience in utilizing technology is in the recruiting and staffing side. Many staffing agencies, the ones that I'm sure you all are familiar with, the Manpowers and the Adecos and Apple Ones, have been utilizing these cloud CRM technologies to drive recruiting and staffing and reemployment. So that was where there was this kind of immediate potential crossover from the private sector to the public sector in workforce development, is on that, the recruiting platforms that were out there. The next phase has really been customer service. How do you service a large number of clients, whether it's business to consumer or business to business? How do you manage this caseload of customers that are coming in and asking for additional services or may have a problem or a challenge? How do you manage that information in real time? Well, the business and private sector communities have really leveraged these platforms, these CRM platforms, to drive customer service. One, so that they can deliver a higher level and higher quality service, but secondly, so that they can manage the caseloads and keep them at a manageable level so that you can resolve cases more quickly. And then thirdly, marketing. We're really seeing, private sector adopting, especially social technology, to drive marketing, because it allows them to really to have a wider reach with their marketing dollars, but also to reduce the cost of marketing. And there's many more applications and different ways that people are using, cloud and social and CRM technology within the business area. But I think the main underlying reason why folks are using this technology and businesses are using this technology is, number one, it's lowering the cost. Before, large organizations such as, Wells Fargo or UPS or, multinational companies, they were the only ones who were able to afford these technologies. But with the evolution of cloud, with the evolution of CRM, it's now become more affordable for small organizations, 1, 2, 3-person operations, to have these amazing technologies. I think the other main reason is it creates efficiencies. Organizations are able to do much more with less. So they're able to reach more customers with less staff and less manpower, but more importantly, also less technology investment. So it costs less to invest in the technology, but you can do a lot more with it. And then additionally, greater capabilities. You can have a wider reach with CRM and with cloud and with social. So, and just a quick statistic on this, 78% of all new applications are now moving to the cloud-based platform. So this is in response to companies and small businesses looking for their applications and really preferring to drive their applications through the cloud. I want to talk a little bit about social. Let's talk about the social trends right now. One of the main things that we're seeing is that customers or businesses are really utilizing social platforms to drive customer relationships. So they're interacting with their caseloads and their clients via these social platforms, whether it's Facebook, Google+, LinkedIn for business. These platforms are really becoming a primary location for communication with their customer base. The other great area that they're using it is visibility. How do they share their message, tell the story of what they're doing as an organization utilizing social media. They're promoting, sales and marketing, promoting new products, new services, new programs, utilizing social media. So social media has become a primary. It used to be maybe secondary or tertiary, but it has really become a primary vehicle for a variety of a primary communication vehicle for engaging with their customer base, their partners, clients, and also internally with their employees and staff. So let's talk about how is government starting to use these technologies? Well, back in 2011, the White House had issued a federal cloud strategy. At the time, the federal government's Chief Information Officer or U.S. Chief Information Officer Vivek Kundra had issued a white paper saying that the goal for the federal government by 2013 is to have most new programs coming out to be cloud driven. So when they're funding a new workforce development program or a new economic development program, they are encouraging agencies to really look at cloud platforms. And we're really seeing this throughout the country with many of the different organizations. A lot of the new RFPs that are coming out, a lot of the new proposals and requests for technology are really focusing on a web-based platform first. And so this is really an exciting development within government because they're starting to see the benefits that we talked about earlier, the greater efficiencies, the ability to do more with less, the cost savings. So, we're not just seeing it at the federal level as well. We're also seeing it, on the state and local level, as Randy will share with us a little bit later on. Large cities, city of LA, the county of Los Angeles, state of Wisconsin, we're seeing many organizations and state and local cities moving to cloud platforms. And then the other really exciting thing which is starting to happen is we're seeing the adoption of this social government collaboration, this ability to drive outcomes, to connect partners, to collaborate across agencies, the ability for workforce development and economic development and technical colleges all to collaborate in the cloud. We're really seeing government agencies adopting social platforms in order to do that. So let's talk a little bit about workforce development and some of the challenges right now that workforce development is facing, and how might these technologies assist with these challenges. I think you really have three market forces that are driving some of the primary challenges within workforce development. I think number one, political and government. Policymakers are saying, hey, we've got to reduce unemployment. We've got to train more. How do we train more workers, and how do we place more workers? I mean, we've been in a long-term unemployment cycle right now, and so the pressure is really ratcheting up on how do we get more, these high caseloads of folks who are on unemployment or who might be on welfare. How do we get these folks back to work? And obviously, the challenge is a big economic. It's a macroeconomic challenge with the need to retrain people. But you're going to continue to, I think, workforce development is going to continue to see this pressure from the political side to really reduce unemployment. Secondly, financial. I don't know if any of our clients, but many of you out there can attest that your budgets probably aren't going up a whole lot. There's probably a lot of downward pressure on budgets. So a lot of organizations are being asked, they've got to demonstrate greater outcomes, but they've got to do it with either the same or less budget. And I think the third piece is technology. We talk with a lot of organizations, and this really was the catalyst for why we developed our cloud platform for workforce development, was because a lot of the organizations that we were working with did not have the technology at their hands to really drive outcomes. They were managing high caseloads, thousands of job seekers and participants, and doing this on Excel spreadsheets. And I think there was a perfect example the other day that someone told me that the Veterans Administration, there was a news report about the Veterans Administration, and that one of the floors in their buildings was buckling because they had so many paper files that were piling up, it was causing the floor to buckle. I mean, this is what we're seeing in in some of these agencies, where they're trying to manage these thousands of caseloads, and they're trying to do it utilizing Excel spreadsheets and paper files. So we really got to move to a much more data-driven, cloud-driven platform so that we can measure and drive outcomes. So let's talk a little bit about some of the solutions. Really, first and foremost, I think the ability to have real-time data is a number one challenge that we're seeing, within workforce development. How do you get real-time data on participants? How do you get real-time data on job seekers? How do you get real-time data on the skills that employers are looking for in your market? I think the second piece is the ability to connect and collaborate. Workforce development agencies are really looking at ways that they can break down some of the internal communication walls. Maybe there are walls that you're having between business services and career development or case management side. Those two sides of the house need to be communicating in real time throughout, not just on a monthly basis, but weekly and daily basis. If you really want to drive outcomes, you've got to have much tighter collaboration. And then in addition to that, how do you have collective impact? How do you leverage the resources of multiple agencies within a region and drive those resources to have an impact in one specific area, such as unemployment? We're starting to see this with our clients in Wisconsin, that they're doing some exciting things in connecting the workforce development agencies and the workforce development boards with economic development and with technical colleges, so that they can really have a tighter or a better finger on the pulse of what employers are looking for, so that they can train more effectively and then reemploy people quicker. So how do you have a collective impact approach? And then thirdly is, how do you increase and demonstrate outcomes? And we all want to be able to do that, because your ability to demonstrate outcomes is also going to increase your ability to attract more funding. So how do we get there? If those are the three challenges that are being faced, how do we get there? I think number one is adopting a CRM strategy. And CRM, for those of you who aren't familiar with the term, it can stand for customer relationship management, client relationship management. But really, workforce development, the agencies that we're seeing that are adopting a CRM strategy are really having the ability now to drive outcomes. One, they've got real-time data on all of the workforce development functions. So whether it's case management, business services, training, they really have the ability to put pressure on and drive those specific areas so that they can increase outcomes, and they can connect those areas. In addition to that, they can make much better data-driven decisions. So they know this is how many employers we have that are seeking, this type of manufacturing skill, or this is how many employers we have that are looking for more of soft skills training. They have that information at their fingertips, so they can make better data-driven decisions. And then thirdly, forecasting outcomes. I think this is a really exciting time for workforce development, because as you start to move to a more CRM-driven, demand-driven model, you are now able to forecast and predict outcomes. So for instance, you're able to say, well, we're going to finish off the 2012 and 2013 year with this many placements. And the way you can do that with CRM technology is through managing your pipeline and managing the life cycle of business services. The other piece, which we're seeing in larger organizations, for instance, within the City of Los Angeles and the Community Development Department, is they're able to use these CRM technologies to really increase accountability. So if you're a funding organization where you're funding multiple providers down at the service level, by adopting the CRM technology and getting all of your service providers onto the platforms, you're able to get real-time data on their performance, and being able to, one, hold them accountable, but also coach them to success if some of these agencies are maybe falling behind on some of the outcomes. The other area, another key area, is becoming a social agency. One of the statistics I believe was back in 2009 that social communication had surpassed email. So social communication has surpassed email as the primary communication form back in 2009. So you not only have your job seekers and participants who are using social platforms, but also your staff. You know, they're all on, your staff are on Facebook, they're on LinkedIn. So organizations are really seeing how do we leverage this social communication and how do we bring this internally into our agency so that our team can communicate more, we can have our finger on the pulse of what's happening in the organization, and we can help drive outcomes. You know, when you're looking at areas that have multiple economic development or community development partners, maybe you've got workforce development, technical colleges, social services agencies, and economic development. Um, the ability to connect all of those organizations in real time through some type of a social platform, whether it's Salesforce, you know, has a great application, Chatter, or if it's something like Google Plus, but the ability to connect all of these folks and drive communication in real time is really going to be, I think, a game changer for collective impact. So, you know, social communication is definitely an area that we're seeing a lot happening, and I think Randy's going to share about that here in a moment as well. And then thirdly is really becoming a mobile organization. You know, I visited hundreds of one-stop centers, you know, all throughout the country. And I think one of the things I've seen is that, you know, currently all of the services within workforce development primarily are being delivered in a brick and mortar fashion. So the question is, how do we, you know, when we have these teams of business services reps that are going out in the field, or we have job seekers that are trying to access services, how do we make these services available in a mobile platform? How do we have business services reps going out and engaging with businesses and being able to bring up real-time labor market data on their iPad or on their iPhone or Android? How do we have them be able to bring up resumes of available job seekers that could fill a position right then and there? This is really where I think workforce development is headed. And the ability to utilize and leverage mobile, I think, is going to be a key driver to that. So we're really excited about that. But I think the three ways that you can use it is one, you know, extending mobile to your field staff, giving them access to the database of job seekers and employers out in the field, just as any sales rep would have now for any large, you know, corporation. They have access to all of their data in the field. Business services and field staff should have the same, and the ability to deliver services anywhere. And then also, thirdly, the ability to respond to employers' needs much more quickly. So that's really the third piece that we wanted to share there. But I want to now reintroduce Randy. Randy, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still here.
Hey, Randy, how are you doing?
Just fine, thanks.
Well, I want to share and talk with you guys a little bit about LACO, Los Angeles County Office of Education. They're one of our clients, and I'm really excited to have Randy out here because Randy has always been one of the early adopters in figuring out how do you leverage technology, how do you leverage cloud, social, mobile to really drive workforce development outcomes. Randy McCauley is the program manager for LACO Gain Division. Randy, do you want to share a little bit about LACO and tell us a little bit about your organization?
Sure. WACO is a regional occupational agency that is a layer between the state and the local school districts. We're supporting over 80 school districts, and we're also involved with the workforce development. One of the things that's very great about our agency is our superintendent is really supportive of lifelong learning and sees the connection between helping the parents of like our Head Start kids, as well as the kids that are in poverty, to increase their ability to become role models for their children. So he really sees that connection there. So our particular division is focused on providing job readiness and placement services to the welfare population, which are mostly the folks that are the parents of our Head Start kids through LACO.
That's great. So it sounds like, LACO, you guys are a large organization. I believe you're the largest in the country for what you do, which is, I think, really interesting because you're dealing with, a large territory, with LA County that's very spread out. You've got over 80 organizations or 80 school districts within that, but then you're also serving not just, the youth, but the adults in the welfare population. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe LA County has the largest, welfare services program in the country. Is that correct?
Yes, through our partnership with DPSS, our funding partner, LA County has the largest welfare population in the nation right now.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's a large organization, and and there's a lot of moving pieces. Well, oops, I skipped a slide there. So tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you guys are facing right now, and why why are you looking at some of these technologies?
Okay. Well, one of the things that we were looking at is improved collaboration within our own organization as well as with our partner organizations that we're working with. As most government agencies are, we're very conservative as far as how we handle our money because we are stewards of the public good and of the public dollars, our tax dollars. So we really have been a little bit conservative as far as trying out new things. And that has translated to our technology not necessarily being more cutting edge than other agencies that are more private agencies and things like that. So we're looking at improving our collaboration through looking at better tools. And so we're really trying to focus on getting our staff to collaborate with each other as well as with outside agencies. The other thing too that was an issue for LACO was the lack of real-time data. We have systems in place to collect information, but all of that information was used for reporting to our funding agency, and we really didn't have a system in place to share data between each other and with our partners as well. So that was really something that we wanted to try to, that was really a challenge that we wanted to try to resolve. The other thing too is that, as you know, that with the Great Recession, the unemployment rate in LA County jumped from about 5.5% to over 13%.
Wow.
But at the same time, our placement outcomes increased by 2.5% per year during the same time. So we were really expected to do more in a situation where it was harder and harder to achieve those goals. And like AJ had said, our budgets did not increase. So we really needed to figure out a way to utilize the resources we had in a more efficient manner to keep up with the growing demand of placement per year.
So let's go a little deeper then on the social collaboration piece. And here on this slide, we took a picture of you guys are utilizing the Chatter application within our workforce platform, which is built on Salesforce's cloud CRM platform. And I know that you guys really picked up on, I think when we came out there and did the training, that was one of the, I think, really exciting pieces is how much your team had picked up the social collaboration. Can you talk a little bit about, how you've used social collaboration and maybe how it's helped you and, some of the things that you've seen now that you've kind of started to use that platform?
Yes, I think that we've had a lot of uptake on this with our staff. The staff really love it. They use it to chat with each other. We're using the Chatter system right now. One of the nice things about it is that it is a dedicated system for our job developers. There's a lot of social media types of software out there. There's Google Plus. There's other things that will do the same thing. But one of the things that's nice about Chatter and the application that we're using is it's dedicated to our job services efforts. And the nice thing about it is that we can have particular groups so that we can share, different information with different groups. And like the second bullet says there, we're able to collaborate between our job placement specialists as well as our staff that are involved with teaching the job-seeking skills to our participants. The other thing that we're looking forward to in the future is collaborating with our partners and other workforce development agencies. We are working on an initiative to work with our partner agency, Department of Public Social Services, with their job developers to possibly get them using Chatter so that we can just work more closely with them in a more efficient way.
And I think, Randy, it's exciting the way you guys are looking to use it because, LA County being, such a large area and many different organizations, you've got dozens of workforce development organizations, whether it's the city of LA or some of the other surrounding cities. What you guys talked about, connecting all of those different organizations using this platform to be able to drive collective impact. Like you said, the job developers, not just within LACO or within DPSS, but also the other agencies, connecting all of them so that when you are going out and engaging with businesses, you're doing it kind of in a team approach versus, almost competitively, engaging with these businesses in the community. What can you talk a little bit more about that, approach? I know you guys have a working group. Can you talk a little bit more about your goals for connecting, the different agencies?
Yes, we're developing a group that we're calling the LA Workforce Development Community. We're trying to work together with our other agencies, including the 7 WIBs that we have in LA County and our partner agency, Department of Public Social Services. And they have over 50 job developers that they work with over there, working with participants to try to get them jobs. And one of the things that I had noticed is that you act, when you're acting by yourself in a silo, you really are acting in competition with other agencies. And you may not necessarily want to do that, but when you're, talking to the same employers, and in the case of Department of Public Social Services, we're providing them with the same participants basically to fill their job orders. And so by working together with that, it becomes more efficient. And we're hoping to include many more agencies in our collaboration so that we can all kind of work together.
I think it's great, and I think it's exciting what you guys are trying to do out here, and it's nice to see that technology is now, there are platforms to help you, expedite that and speed that up and scale that approach. Let's talk a little bit about real-time data tracking. I know when you and I originally started talking, and wow, this was over a year and a half ago. That was one of the main areas that you were looking to make improvements. Let's talk a little bit about real-time data tracking and your approach to that, and some of the things you've been able to do, and some things you're still working on.
Okay, yeah. I think that this is going to be really important in our implementation of the software, that you have one spot to go to find all the information that you need on how you're doing. This is going to really help with tracking, again, like AJ had said before, with predicting outcomes. Right now, I have a data collection system that we use in the county for reporting purposes, and I have some of our staff ask me on a regular basis, well, how is our placement doing? And we come out with that data on a monthly basis, and the data is old by the time we publish it. And we don't really know it, but we have quarterly goals that we need to set. And by using this system, we're really hoping that will allow our users of the system and our staff to see on a real-time basis what they're doing. And we're hoping at some point to integrate our reporting system into the system as well as the job development piece. And then that will really improve the ability for us to use the data in a quicker feedback loop than we currently have right now. Right now it's on a monthly basis. We're hoping it can be in real time at some point in the future.
And how does real time data, kind of looking forward? What are the two sets of data that you believe is most important to be tracking?
Well, I think that right now the placement data, because our contracts with DPSS require us to meet certain placement goals, and the ability to find out what is our placement rate in real time, I think is going to be very important. The other thing, too, is that for managers, they'll have the ability to see where job orders are in the process and be able to maybe help move things forward when we are, maybe lagging behind in a certain area, or maybe we need to increase contacts with employers. That kind of information is going to be helpful for our managers as well to help our staff to really do a more efficient job.
I like what you have to say, the ability to kind of forecast in a way, look at the pipeline, look at the funnel. And this is, this is really business speak that we're having here. And it's interesting. I'm listening on the chat here, and folks are talking about how, the conversation is really going towards more how businesses run, organizations. And obviously we're not saying, hey, you have to be, run it like a business, but how do you manage your pipeline? How do you look at it for business services? Hey, it looks like we have 100 positions that are in, that just came in today. Maybe we should focus on getting those filled, and maybe we should, start driving that. And I know you had some instances, where that had happened, where, you had a large number of job orders that might come into the system. And if you don't have real-time data on that, how do you react to that?
Yes, we had a situation. One of our best job developers, Jackie Seals, was calling into our management meeting on a Wednesday, and she was panicked. She had just gotten an order from one of her employers for 200 positions that she needed to fill by Monday. And
Wow.
We didn't have the system fully in place at the time, so she was making phone calls to all of our sites. Can you send me resumes? Can you look in the classroom to see if anybody is qualified for these positions? And we were really scrambling around trying to fill those positions to keep the employer happy. With this system, one of the things that this does for us is, because the data is centralized, it really helps with that kind of information. She could put out a request on Chatter, and if folks have that on their mobile phones, let's say, they will get a message instantly. So it doesn't even matter if they're out in the field, they're in the classroom, they're on break or whatever, they can access that information immediately and can start working on it, rather than having Jackie or whoever make phone calls around to all of our sites trying to pull in information.
I think that's really, key thing that you talked about, is the ability to respond more quickly to businesses. I know when one of the projects we're working on, there was some survey work that was done to survey some of the businesses that were engaging with workforce development. And many of the businesses responded in the survey saying that workforce development, one of their biggest gripes or frustrations with workforce development is the response time, the responsiveness. So if they do give you 200 positions to fill, those are 200 people that are, could possibly be, moved off of welfare and into, income, earning an income. So how do you, but if you can't respond to the employer within 24, 48 hours, they're going to call the next person, and they're going to go through the staffing agency, or they're going to go and fill the positions themselves, versus taking the folks that are on your caseload and re-employing them. So I think what you talked about was, is really important, the responsive time. And when you're referring to the system, I mean, we're talking about obviously the workforce application on Salesforce's platform that you guys are using, which is integrated with Chatter. But the message that you're really trying to drive is you have to have real-time data. You've got to know what your job seekers and your participants and your employers are.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, the mechanics of it are secondary to the outcomes, really. And but you do also have to have the right tools for the job as well.
Let's talk a little bit about increasing placement outcomes. I think you just started to introduce that there, but what are your thoughts about strategies for increasing placement outcomes, and how do you use these technologies, whether it's social or mobile or cloud CRM? How do you use these technologies to really drive placement outcomes?
Well, I think that one of the things that is really helpful is that with the Chatter application, we can increase the efficiency of staff. What we can do with that is that if we can put out a request for information, and staff are all logged in, looking at their their chatter screens. That information just gets out quicker so that we can fill job orders a lot faster. And I think that that's one of the things that with the social side of things that's really going to help us out is that the communication that we'd had before was very hit and miss. With a centralized area that's dedicated to that kind of communication, it's easier then to communicate information about job orders and things like that out to the rest of the staff so that we can work together in a more efficient way. The other thing too is that we're kind of going through a little bit of a paradigm shift right now. We were asked to do more with less, of course. And in the time when our budgets are not increasing, we had to kind of look at different ways of doing business. And so one of the things that we looked at, I think that a lot of workforce development agencies use more of a supply side driven placement strategy, where they're given all of these participants through a program like the GAIN program or whatever, and we're expected to fill those positions. And so we had to kind of look at changing that up a little bit to help increase our placement rates. We still do that. We still get classes of people, every week coming in, and we work with about 16,000 GAIN and about 6,000 GROW GR participants per year, and we have to get all those folks, as many of them as we can, placed. But one of the things that we did as far as changing our way of thinking, is a paradigm shift for us, was looking at the employer as the person that we need to focus on, as our customer, and then allowing the supply to then fill those orders. And so that was a bit of a change to us. But one of the things that is helpful is when we're doing that job matching piece of it, the system allows us to do that very efficiently. So before, we had files with resumes in them, and we had people who knew what, the facilitators that knew what the staff was, or knew that the participants had come through. And so it was very inefficient. It's like, do you remember somebody who has these qualifications? Do you remember, somebody that, has a clean background, somebody that, has a class 2 license? So all of that data was in people's heads, in files. But now with this new system that we've implemented, it's all centralized and accessible mobily too, which I think is important. A lot of times the job developers that are moving more to a demand-driven model are going to be out meeting employers, and they're going to be not sitting in an office somewhere. And so the ability to access the data on resumes, on the information about our participants, on employers, is going to be a very important thing. By shortening the response times through collaboration with our partners, through accessing data on our system, we're able to more efficiently place people in jobs.
Well, I think that's great, and at the end of the day, I mean, if we can drive outcomes and increase outcomes, placement outcomes, it's what it's all about. Well, wow, that was Randy. You covered a lot there, and we got to the end of the presentation. I'm going to leave it on this slide here because I had a couple of follow-up questions for you, Randy. I know that we've talked. This is a phased approach because when we started, the first step is getting the employer data into the system and getting the business services and job developers onto the system. What have been some of the challenges that you've seen in making this transition from, the old school way of doing things, a supply-driven model, not utilizing technology, or maybe utilizing, outdated technology or inflexible technology, and now moving to this new, social, mobile, CRM-driven approach and being demand-driven? What have been some of the challenges that you've encountered?
Well, I think part of it was that paradigm shift that I was talking about. I think that a lot of job development professionals in the public sector have a particular way of looking at things, of contract compliance, of looking at things in a different way than I think we need to look at it to really optimize the amount of placements that we have. So I think it was a part of it was training staff on the new model and how to look at employers as our customers. And I think that took a little bit of time to kind of change over. The other thing that I can say is a problem that is kind of an ongoing problem that we're still trying to resolve, is working with legacy data from systems that are that are set up for purposes other than job development, let's say, for more reporting type purposes. And I think that one of the things that we've tried to do with that is to upgrade the information that we're collecting about participants, let's say, for instance. We didn't need to collect that much information to report on outcomes from our job clubs and from our development efforts. But now, with a job matching system, we need more information than we were able to collect before, or we were willing to collect, I guess. Things like, can they pass a drug test? Do they have a criminal background? What kind of transportation do they use to get to and from job interviews? Do they have a driver's license? Do they have any kind of endorsements on that license, like for hazardous materials? What languages do they speak? How do we contact them? Do we have good phone numbers for them? Do we have an email address for them? That kind of information was lacking in our current system because frankly we didn't need it. But now, with a change of how we're doing this, or as far as the data collection piece of it anyway, we're really looking at collecting that kind of information for utilizing in our job matching piece of that.
Absolutely. And has there, when you're looking at collecting this information, and an employer says, hey, I need to hire 5 people that are bilingual in, Spanish and English, and have clean records and have a driving, endorsement they can do, or, drive train in forklift, whatever. How does having that information enable you to make more placements, and how do you keep all that information? Previously, how would it be kept, and now how are you keeping it?
Well, previously, if we kept it at all, it would probably be in a file somewhere.
Okay.
And the other thing we'd have to do is we'd have to rely on the memory of our staff didn't we have somebody last month that had a forklift certificate, or who was that person? And so I think that by centralizing the data into a system that is easily accessible, that kind of data can then be searched much more efficiently than trying to remember if somebody was in the system, trying to keep things in an Excel spreadsheet, or doing all that. By keeping things in an Excel spreadsheet, another problem with that is that it's on an individual user's computer. So that particular site, or that particular person may have access to that data, but by centralizing it, then everyone has access to the data. And I think that was the important part of implementing our new strategy, was to try to centralize all of the information so that everyone would have access to it. That then leads to a more efficient way of finding the right person for the job, and then being able to meet our placement goals.
What has been, I know we talked about this a little bit, but there has been multiple agencies, not just LACO, but other agencies have had challenges in getting access to certain data. What have what have been some of the challenges that you've seen in getting access to data, and why is it important, to have, participant data merged with employer data, merged with training programs? Maybe you can speak to the little bit of, the ability to access this data.
Yeah, the ability to access the data is very important. Like I said before, when individuals keep the data to themselves, basically, it limits the effectiveness of the organization as a whole. But when you have a situation where that data, you're in an environment, a social environment, let's say, where that data is easily shared among colleagues, then it just helps to increase the efficiency of the entire system, basically. So that's kind of what I was, referring to with that last statement there. So I'm thinking that, I think that keeping all of the information centrally is a very important thing with our new model.
Yeah, this is it, and in order to be functioning under the demand-driven model, you really have to have this all of this information at your fingertips. I think back to when I was doing job development, in the staffing industry, and I was, calling on employers, and employers would ask me, and this, yeah, I'm dating myself here, but this was, in the early 2000s. I was calling on these companies, and employers would say, "Hey, I need to hire 10 people in the call center, and I need them to start next week. Can you get me resumes?" And we were able to, at the time, it wasn't so much mobile, but I was at least able to bring up my laptop computer and run a search myself in the database of resumes. And either I would shoot them over to the employer to help coordinate and schedule interviews, or our career development person would do that. But they had that information because that was the lifeblood. That was what we referred to as your inventory or your product, that you're offering the business community. If you're going out to the employer and saying, "Hey, we offer, we can help you hire people, and here's the great part, we can do it for free." If you're offering this service, you've got to be able to respond quickly. And I think what you're talking about is you've got to have placement data or participant data, a detailed profile on that job seeker, history of that job seeker, so that if you've maybe placed them once and then they were let go for whatever reason, that you have notes as to why were they let go, so that can help you, place them another place and deal with any other issues that might be there. But you've also got to have data on the employers and the job orders. If the job order, if you go out and get those 200 job orders, but are not able to respond to them within, a few days to a few weeks, those job orders probably aren't going to be open anymore. And if you don't have real-time data on that, you're going and reporting inaccurate information to your funders, saying, "Oh, we've got 200 job openings," but the reality is you probably don't, because if you haven't responded to them quickly enough and you aren't keeping that information updated, it's going to change. Um,
That's right. I think that's
Go ahead.
important too. Just the analytics piece of the thing too
Mm-hmm.
is being able to analyze the data to determine, well, we haven't gotten a job order from this company in a long time. Maybe we ought to give them a call to find out what
Yeah.
happened. Maybe their placement person that you would have been working with has moved on to another job.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you need to develop a relationship with someone else in the company. So there's all of that can be analyzed when you collect the data on the employer as well as on the participant. So all of the more data that you can get, the better analytics you can use, and the better system you'll have, basically.
Absolutely. Randy, we've got just a few more minutes here. Obviously, I like to keep everything on time for everybody, but we had a couple questions that came in here on email. So I wanted to ask this: how are your business services staff using the application and the workforce Salesforce application?
Well, right now we're slowly implementing it. Right now, mostly our folks are using Chatter to communicate back and forth and to put in job orders and to kind of communicate with other staff right now. We're beginning to we've updated all of our skills in the system that we're used for matching, and at some point here in the near future, we're going to be able to resolve some of our legacy data issues that we had talked about and get the information from our data collection system into Salesforce. And at that point, I really see the implementation really taking off, because we'll be able to use the reporting system and the job matching system and uploading resumes in a lot more efficiently than we're currently doing it. Right now, it's a little bit slow on the uptake on that side, just because we are still kind of putting the pieces in place. I've gone through the system though and seen all of the pieces work independently, and it's really it's a great system. And I think that we just have to get some of these little bugs worked out as far as the data flow, and I think that we're going to really have a great system.
And I think what you talked about is key there, and we've seen this with other clients. The larger ones, it takes them a little longer to be able to get, either data sharing agreements or, so that they can, especially if they're working with multiple agencies, so that they can have access to participant data as well as employer data. And then the smaller, more nimble agencies, a great organization, that we're working with up in the Bay Area, Rubicon Programs, they've got both sides of data now pumping through the system. and their business services and job developers are able to respond, and fill positions. They really adopted the demand-driven model very early on. So, and because they're a smaller organization, they're able to respond more quickly. But they're really starting to see some outcome gains outcome gains because they have participant data with employer data mixed together, and they're able to do that job matching more effectively. One other question here that we had, which is a really good question. Randy, you can take a stab at this, and I might try to answer this as well. What makes this different, and I think he's saying this by this platform or this technology, different from Monster.com or CalJobs? And for those of you who aren't in California, CalJobs is kind of the state's EDD system, their job board and system tracking system that they use. What makes this different from Monster or CalJobs? Randy, what do you think?
Well, I think that one of the things that makes this a little bit different is the integration of the participant side of things. That you have the ability to do the matching. The CalJobs and all that. That type of model is more, I think, associated with more of a supply side, where you have people posting jobs, and then it's like open for anybody to apply or whatever. With this is more specific to the demand-driven model, where we have job developers out meeting with employers and getting specific job orders that we're matching with our participant base, our supply side. And so I think that the matching piece of it is a little bit different than, a company posting something on Monster or on another, another board like that. So I think that it's really the fact that it's localized to LA County. We have the ability to search the participants that we've worked with. So that it's the matching piece of it, I think, that really makes the difference.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100% on that. Monster is a job board. It's kind of like it's a Craigslist or a classified ads for, that self-service that job seekers, obviously can post. And CalJobs was very similar, and I know that the state is has a new version that they're using, but still, what we're talking about here is really being CRM driven. Utilizing the technology to help facilitate the process. And you've got boots on the ground that are helping to business services reps or job developers or case managers that are working with these participants and these job seekers. But are you collecting all of the data along the way to help, at the end of the day, help facilitate that placement? And I think that that's really what's different here, is these technologies help to facilitate that, not only facilitate it, but help to automate it, because that's a lot of the things that we're going to be working with you guys, Randy, obviously. And, what are some of those processes that you're doing right now that really could be automated so that it frees up the time of the career development specialists and the business services folks to really be more focused on the placement side? And that other stuff, that's when you start to see the efficiency gains. So this technology, to answer that question, which was a great question, it's much broader. This is really much more of a platform, I like to say, versus it just being a job board or a database. It's much more of a platform that helps automate and facilitate the placement and the matching side, and also the social collaboration. Well, Randy, this has been great. I wanted to let everybody know before we jump off the webinar here. For those of you, we're going to send out to everybody a ebook that we just recently published. It's called Top 10 Strategies to Increase Workforce Development Outcomes. And so we're going to send that out to everybody who signed up for the webinar, and want to continue to provide you with more strategies on increasing placements. And for those of you who want to connect with us, you can obviously email me at ajankans@launchpadco.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook and Google+. So all these places. And Randy, if folks want to connect with you and reach out to you, how can folks get in touch with you?
Sure. I have a LinkedIn account. I also have a Facebook account that you can find me on, and they can email me if they'd like to.
Great.
And my email address, I don't know if we have a way to put this up on the screen or not, AJ, but I'll just give it out. It's McCauley, McCauley _ Randy at lacoe.edu. And so I'll give it to you one more time just to make sure everybody has a chance to write it down. McCauley_Randy at lacoe.edu.
Well, this has been great, Randy. I just want to thank you. I always enjoy talking to you and seeing the progress that you guys are having there at LACO and LA County. And obviously, it's going to be an exciting, continuation of that as you continue to build onto the system. Thank you, everybody. I want to make sure we cut this, end the webinar before 11 o'clock. If anybody has questions, reach out to us. You can go to our website to learn more information and look out for that ebook that we'll be sending to you. Hey, Randy, thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Thank you.